Jesus said, "The crop is huge, but the workers are few. So beg the harvest boss to dispatch workers to the fields." Jesus said, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you have will save you. If you do not have that within you, what you do not have within you will kill you." Jesus said, "I am the light that is over all things. I am all. From me all came forth, and to me all attained. Split a piece of wood, I am there. Lift up the stone, you will find me there." Wow. This is Jesus guy, man. Some pretty powerful stuff to say. Those were from the Gospel of Thomas. So what are we going to be discussing today? So we're going more into the be in love. And I'll continue on with that for a while, right? Because it has a lot to do with a lot of different things in our lives, right? And so what do we have for scripture today, right? So Jesus said, "I am the light that is over all things. I am all. From me all came forth, and to me all attained. Split a piece of wood, I am there. Lift up the stone, and you will find me there." So first of all, what I want to clarify here, do I want to turn my volume up? No, that should be pretty good. What I want to clarify here is my thoughts on any of the things that Jesus is saying, right? So in the Bible, it says, "Whatsoever, what a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." Right? And anybody's listened to, if you've listened to my other podcasts, other episodes, I really dive into, especially in the earlier ones, an overall concept that is the majority of what I say is deeply rooted in as the foundation of what I deem to be one of the absolute truths, right? And that is our world, your outer world, each one of us, a point of individual consciousness, there's a consciousness that's being you, right? And that consciousness is I. It's the I within you, right? And then that I within you is the consciousness that is being you. And so in order for something to be you, to be a being, right? And that's why this podcast is called Being Human, not Human Beings, right? Because I believe that I am being human, not the other way around. And I feel very strongly that if there is an evil in the sense that people could see it, it's live backwards in spelling and in truth. And it's believing that we are of the world and not the other way around, that the world is of us. And that what we are at our core is something that transcends everything, right? Jesus said, "This heaven shall pass away and this earth shall pass away," right? It transcends the body. It transcends even the soul. It transcends the personality. It is the thing being you, which, so as we grow in our awareness of this fact, when they say, "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Thine will be done," right? So, and when God spoke to Moses, God said, "I am that I am," right? And so, your I am, and be still and know that I am God, right? And so, being, that tied with the fact that ultimately I think that God is love, right? And love is basically in everything. It's in the small, it's like this, it's predicates the substance that's in all and through all, right? Omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient, right? And your individuality begins like as the Son of God, or the aspect of the all, which before the aspect of the all that is the source for and provides the material selflessly for all creation is not personified. It's the zero. Tesla referred to it as the 0 point. He also referred to getting his inventions from the Akash, right? If in order to be a creator being or a child of God, right, a child of source, in order to manifest things, it means you need to call forth that which isn't into being. So even a creator needs to draw from a source that hasn't been defined yet. So we could look at the 0 point as just possibility for anything. So even a creator needs like a backpack, he needs a source of it, or even like a magician or a wizard, right? They need a source from which they do their magic. And that's the 0 point part of the Trinity. That's the energy component, right? And then what ends up happening is your I am, right? I am that I am, right? So if God didn't say just I am, he said I am that I am, right, to Moses. And what this signifies to me is that if it was just I am was all you needed, then God would have just said I am. But he didn't say that. He said I am that I am, right? And there's some importance in there, because if I just say I am, it's an incomplete sentence. It's not enough to create, right? Because you can't have relationship, right? How can I exist without juxtaposition? To know what I am, I must know what I am not, right? So as soon as you say I am that, you denominate. And denominate, as I said in a prior episode, means to name, right? So I am that. I am, right? And that's kind of how things are created. So so the thing that is being me, it must believe itself to be me. So it must have a conception of me. But that same thing, if you're writing a computer code and you created a character, right? Let's say you're making a computer code for a video game with a character. He's like some fancy knight in, to play the game, you're going to have your knight, and then he's going to be in a world, and he's going to have other characters, and those other characters will define him as he defines them, to create that story. Because if you're creating the character, you're like, oh, he's a knight. Okay, well, what's a knight? Well, a knight is a person that carries a sword and fights bad guys or whatever, right? Okay, well, you need the juxtaposition, so now you need to create a world around him that he's a knight in. Now you could say, well, what if he's not a knight? He's not just a knight. He's a knight that's in, let's say he's a medieval knight, but somehow he got transferred in time, right? Okay, fine. So maybe he won't be in a medieval world, but he'll be a knight that is in a world that's not medieval, and like it could be like one of those movies, he's a knight in New York City or something like that. Regardless, he needs an outer world to define him. And vice versa, or he wouldn't exist, right? When you look out at a tree, in order to see the tree, you're seeing the tree juxtaposed against what isn't a tree. Or if it's a tree in a forest, you're seeing a tree relative. So you have relativity. So it's a tree in a forest of other trees. So even the trees that are similar to that tree give it relativity and definition, and the things that are very unlike the tree give it definition as well. And so that's just how it is, right? So the absolute truth that was given to me years ago that just continues to grow within the framework of the mind state that I presently use is our world is a perfect, mathematically precise, inverted, projected reflection of our conception of ourself. And it couldn't be any other way. And that can be a confusing statement for someone who may presently be what I consider to be over-identifying with the person that they're being, because it's like hard for them to imagine. I don't get it. How could I be like creating this whole world outside of me? My personality doesn't even feel like it's that detailed that I could create a whole world, but it's very, very deep. And, I'm not going to dive into it now, but, you have the different consciousnesses, right? Your unconscious basically contains a code of an interpretation of every single thing that has seemingly transpired in time in your lineage before even human, like everything, whatever it was, is stored in that code, right? And that creates the DNA and the genetics, which is changeable. You can change that code, right? Atone for the sins of the father. So, and Carl Jung said, unless you make the unconscious conscious, you will have things continue to happen to you and call them fate. Right? So it's yours. We all have it. You have access. You have access to the programming in your unconscious. You have access to the programming in your subconscious. You have access to your conscious. You have access to your superconscious. The Bible says, know thyself. And I've said it in other spaces, and I'm not going to dive into it now. Not spaces, podcasts in this series, diving into Jesus talking about that, the tetramorph. He said, in a house of 5, 3 shall rise up against 2, 2 shall rise up against 3, father against son, mother against daughter, and then they shall stand as a solitary one. You got to bring them together, kind of like Voltron or Mighty Morphin Power Ranger type thing. The unconscious, subconscious, conscious, and superconscious, and they all communicate kind of differently. And learn differently. So it's about the harmonizing and the balancing of them. And it's not something that I think that anybody needs to go read a whole bunch of books on or anything like that. I didn't. I'm not saying I've harmonized them all, but this information that I have comes to me through revelation as I started to gain in understanding of the fact that I have access to information that transcends the personality matrix. It's pretty cool. And that's a lot of the things that I like to point to and reflect back to others who are listening here, is ultimately, not just, hey, take my word for it. I'm seeking and intending to act as a catalyst and prompt others to start practicing transcending their prior knowledge by seeking and finding, asking and getting the answer, knocking and having the door be open to them, and really realizing greater is he within you than he is of the world, that you have access to this incredible information for healing and health, wellness, knowing the right thing to say at the right time. It's really magical access to that love power, right? So when you have someone like Jesus, right, and there's a couple of times when he would just go on these rants, not the best word, but whatever, rants, he would start saying the I am, right? So he was known as Christ Jesus, right? And even Jesus said, he said, of my own self, I do nothing. Through me, the Father does all things. And so Christ comes from the Christos, oil, means anointed one. So my perspective presently is not that Jesus the man is anybody I need to call out to or anything like that. I think that he was a representation of what it is like when man embodies the truth of our divinity, of acknowledgement of being a Trinity. And so whatsoever a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So when he says, I am the truth, I am the way, I'm the Alpha, I am the Omega, I am the beginning, I'm the ending. It's not like, hey, Jesus the man. It's saying that it's the Christ within Jesus, creating that acknowledgement and passing on the proper value belief matrices to allow him to embody both the understanding of being a human, but also connection to source, love, and unity. So it wasn't about, and that's to me what it means. And so when he says, and really being able to know that at your very core, you are love, that omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient force that is able to create life simply by being an individual aspect. So if a creator being decides to create a character, they will create the world that will support that character. And, when we think on when we talk about dimension, some people say go to another dimension or something like that. You wouldn't go to another dimension. It's more like Russian dolls. You're already in them, So if you had people on this plane on Earth who had a very limited awareness, they could say the Earth is flat because they realize that they are on a plane and they only have a two-dimensional awareness. It was hard for them to fathom that they could potentially be on a three-dimensional globe, right? But now you have to apply that same perspective to the idea that, well, of course, that three-dimensional globe, right, that we become aware of, it wouldn't make any sense that it wouldn't be sitting in a fourth dimensional, what's known as a hypersphere. And it also wouldn't make any sense that that fourth dimensional hypersphere wouldn't exist in a fifth dimensional globe sphere, right? And that would sit within a sixth dimensional one. You know, like I said before, if you have a one-dimensional bug or thing on a piece of paper, it doesn't need to travel to other dimensions. It's already within, you know, it doesn't go to the fourth dimension or the fifth dimension. Those are just parameters of expanded awareness of what it is already in. So then you say, well, then, you know, so if I go to, so look at so one way to kind of look at that is look at dimensions now, right? So, look at length, width, height, right? So, you know, vertical line, horizontal line, right? I can move coordinates. So I can walk north. I can move in the direction of north, but I'm not traveling to a different dimension. I am traveling in a different coordinate within that same dimension. Right? And so I can see my mind, for whatever reason, I see things very, very abstract. I see things that, and it's why you'll hear me use so many analogies, and you'll find me tie so many things together. My mind just does it automatically because I look at, I'm a very, very big picture person, but it's so big that it actually doesn't represent itself in my mind as images, because there are images, but they're multidimensional images. So it's hard to describe, right? You know, when most people see an image in their head, what they're seeing is they're seeing a two-dimensional image, which is very, very, very limited, right? It's very linear. And so when I see things from this multidimensional aspect, it actually makes like really perfect sense for me why you can be in your world. And that the statement when I said that your world is a perfect, mathematically precise, inverted, projected reflection of your conception of yourself, meaning that you are literally manifesting your world by being who you are. In that moment, the world matches you perfectly. And so everybody around you are characters supporting your character for your story. But with the multidimensional image, so to speak, that I am able to hold in my head, I can also see that I am the center of my universe, and you are a character in my story, and everybody's matching me perfectly in that moment. And it branches off in so many different directions, because when you start getting into the idea of a fifth dimensional, sixth dimensional sphere, that's when you actually get the coordinates of time involved, and not only time but parallel universes, right? So everything is ultimately comprised of just thought. So there's something known as the many worlds theory, which, based on how I see things, makes perfect sense for me. And this could be something that may trigger some people listening to this if they dive too much in it. And I'm not going to go too much into it because it could kind of ruin the game a little bit, knowing that there are literally an infinite number of your character everywhere. Right. And at the end of the day, you're just kind of creating an experience and floating around, and everything's okay. And no matter what you do, the I am within you is going to be fine. You just basically choose your own venture, kind of jumping around things. Or that, if we, like saving things, knowing that everything's okay anyways, but it's just a story. Why do we watch movies? Why do we play video games? When you play the video game, you're not going to die. Nobody's going to die. You might be shooting other people and Call of Duty video games and things like that. Everything's okay. You still play. Me personally, I prefer to be able to live this life with the appreciation of its finiteness and ability to experience pretty significant things, but at the same time to know in my heart that ultimately everything's okay, But anyways, so when Jesus is so to me, basically, he embodied the recognition of the fact that he is one with Source, with love. So when he says, I am the light that is over all things, I am all, from me all came forth, and to me all attained, split a piece of wood, I am there, lift up the stone and you'll find me there. And now here's where it's kind of fascinating, because with that many worlds understanding, with the understanding that the world, that everybody is actually playing characters in your world, it means you have way more power over your environment than you could ever imagine. And you can do so without violating other people's free will. How? Right? Because ultimately, everybody's matching who you're being. It's really cool. I've been practicing with this, and it's astounding. And there are some things that I think I'm still refusing to let go of, because I don't know, maybe I want to hold on to the game in my deepest core, or maybe it's scary. But you can really try it out. Start when you have look at people the next time you have an issue with them or something, and if you want, of course, to do this, and aim it back at yourself and say, what, even if they seem to be judging you, and say, what are they reflecting back to me? What judgments am I holding that's causing this? Like own up to it, right? With great power comes great responsibility, which means the inversion is true. With great responsibility comes great power. Well, what is responsibility? The ability to respond. Responsibility. What I believe I am responsible for will give me the ability to respond to it. And that's just how things are, right? So in your heart, this is what's so cool, man. So you have a heart, right? So that heart is comprised of a bunch of cells, right? And those cells group together and form specific components, right? Those valves, and maybe I could have used a better analogy, because I don't know a lot presently about, I'm not aware presently of the intricacies of a heart, right? Let's say a hand, right? So you have a hand, right? So your hand has sinew, tendons, veins, capillaries, skin, fingernails, so on and so forth, right? But then there's also the hand, and then all of those components are comprised of cells that seem to just, for whatever reason, group together and behave in such a way of uniformity to give you the ability to have a hand that responds to your requests, right? Now, what's really beautiful is each of those cells are conscious, right? Like, the cells are actually conscious of being cells. But then you have a hand that's conscious of being a hand. Or if you want to go back to the heart, you have heart cells, and then you have a heart that is conscious of being a heart. So there's a consciousness for the heart, and there's consciousness for the cells, and one could even argue there might be consciousness for the individual components, right? So what's the difference? Well, a heart cell is seeing itself as a heart cell, right? So what makes it a heart cell? Well, it's what it believes it is, what it needs, what it hopes to accomplish, what it can accomplish, right? And so it's basically its intent and its action and its reaction, right? And it all ties into its responsibility. So it believes it's responsible for being a heart cell, and therefore it's going to perform with the ability to respond as a heart cell, right? But the power of that heart cell is limited and has less influence over the overall function of the heart than the consciousness representing the heart itself. And when you zoom out, and then you have cardiovascular system, pulmonary system, and then there's you, right? And you have a huge impact on what will change the overall experience of the heart, right? So in a sense, you transcend that. But the thing is, they're all consciousnesses. So what makes the difference from one consciousness to another? And it's what it believes it is. Well, then you say, well, is it the material itself that's believing it's conscious, or is there a consciousness that's believing itself to be the material? And I would argue that it's that, right? And so you'd say, well, why am I this? Well, you are the aspect of consciousness that is identifying as being what you're being. I am that I am. That's just it. That's just what you are. That's what God manifests, the Creator manifests, is choosing to be. And I think at first when we start really looking at these ideas, there's a lot of separation between that idea of this God and ourselves. And I think transcendence comes from the word transcendiere, and Latin, and it means to climb over, right? And that's it. So as you're ascending, you're just kind of going into a higher awareness of the responsibility that you have. It's almost like you're graduating into that next level consciousness that has more responsibility over things, right? And as I've said before, Jesus said, for he who looks upon the world and sees it as a body, for him the world is not worthy. And I think what he's indicating here is that based upon the many worlds theory combined with the additional theory that I believe strongly in that came to me about the world being a perfect, mathematically precise, inverted projected reflection of your conception of yourself, leads us to explore the idea that your world is as much a body to you that you have the ability to have as much responsibility over as you do your own hand. We talked about in the prior episode, right? When you go to pick up a banana, you get tens of trillions of organisms to do your bidding so that you can have the experience of eating a banana. Why are you so powerful? Because you believe yourself to be the one that is. But, when we zoom in, I am the light that is in all things. From me all came forth, and to me all attained. Split a piece of wood, I am there. Lift up the stone, and you will find me there. It's love, baby. Right? It's love. Right? And there's love, and love manifest. And love is this potential force that takes on the characteristics of that which is believed. It's literally unconditional love is the most selfless force there is. You believe it, it manifests it. It turns, and not only does it manifest in it, it becomes it. That's how selfless it is. It becomes that of which it is believed to be. And it's limitless, and it's beautiful. You'll find it everywhere. It's in everything, right? Jesus said, if you bring forth what is within you, what you have will save you. If you do not have that within you, what you do not have within you will kill you. And me, that is love. So when we say be in love, well, what's the inversion of that? Be out of love. And what I'm finding is, what better way to be in something than to be it? Love is your being, right? And so what is love? Love is an attributeless, limitless, infinite power, ultimately the only power in the universe. And we, being these creator beings that sit in between that 0 point infinite love source and the manifested world, find a way to bring them into harmony and balance and union by realizing that the true cause and effect. That I personally don't think the goal is to just look at the material world and call it an illusion and poo-poo it, right? Because it's the feminine aspect, Mother Earth, Major Earth, Matrix, the form, right? It gives the expression of content reason for being. It makes it matter. It's beautiful, man, And I didn't always know this, and I'm still growing in my understanding of it. I thought when I first started becoming more self-aware, I was supposed to escape this trap prison planet and all that stuff, right? Now, the crazy thing about that is, if I believe that enough, it will be true for me. Because that's how love is. It says God is no respecter of persons. He rains on and shines the sun on the good and the evil alike. No matter what, things are just in a constant state of manifestation. It's just going to happen. So when I say be in love, I'm not necessarily implying that when you do things that may seem hateful or self-destructive or destructive of your outer world, or things that cause you or others suffering, that it's not still love manifest. It is, but it's serving your experience of being what, by, even if it's through ignorance or choosing to be, they say, be the change you want to see in your world. It's insane, and hey, look, I'm not flying around and, there's a lot of things I'm still figuring out, and these podcasts really help me because I go into a state of a channel and I listen to them afterwards. I sit down and say, okay, what's going to come out? And I tune into love, and love comes out and speaks through me, and I get some clarity. Again, because especially the way I think very multidimensionally. I will use words in my mind, and I do have dialogue to be able to communicate with the part of my mind that thinks on that linear level. But I'm actually a lot more comfortable thinking in very, very abstract, multidimensional concepts. It's like soft and safe and comfortable for me there. But this podcast and the spaces that I do and just talking to others really helps me to, through intention of wanting to put words to it, bring some of these things to earth for myself as well. So it's very, very helpful. And so I'm saying these things. So sometimes things can come out of me in this podcast or in spaces that will have a very authoritative ring to it. And sometimes my personality, me, hasn't actually heard that before or heard it in that way. And so as teach learning, right? So as I'm expressing this, I'm learning too. So there's, I mentioned before, as we go through this process, there's the unification of the four consciousnesses, the unconscious, conscious, subconscious. Sorry, let's go in the order. Superconscious, conscious, subconscious, unconscious. And they communicate a little differently. The subconscious and the unconscious really like experience in the material to embed and begin transforming new data into a new state of being for the animal, for the being. Whereas the superconscious and the conscious, they're a little bit more tangible, non-corporeal, right? Kind of like superconscious, conscious is like air and water, and subconscious, unconscious is kind of like fire and earth, right? The lion and the bull, right? And so there are some things that I get a lot of inspiration, and then what I've learned to do is create more harmony between the personality subjective self and the quote unquote higher self, so that it's easier for me to put into practice these revelations. So I get inspiration, which comes in the form of an idea, and then that inspiration in the form of an idea will, if I accept it, start mixing with my intelligence and my thoughts. And if I can find enough, I have enough faith in it, and it just seems to work and it doesn't get rejected, then it will seek to apply itself. And you hear people speak in their awareness journeys of, and then some people think they're being tested. They're like, oh, I'm getting tested, or God's testing me, or sometimes people think the devil's trying to thwart you on your path or whatever. I personally see it as an initiation. I like the word initiation. Why? Well, the word test means that it's still kind of indicating there's something outside of yourself, and it's testing you, right? Which also denotes that you can fail. So you're going into a test believing that there's some other thing that's giving you a test, right? So what is that thing that's giving you the test? Is it something more, maybe it's the thing that's more powerful than you? Oh, wow, that's weird. So the part of myself that's more powerful is going to test out the part of me that's less powerful. And by the nature of seeing it as a test, allows the possibility that I can fail. That's weird. Why would a part of me that is the more powerful one put the lesser me to a test where they can fail? Yuck. No, thank you. Right? So instead, I prefer a more harmonizing perspective wherein all aspects of myself are working together, where there are parts of myself that can be considered weaker and parts of myself that can be considered stronger. And that the stronger aspects of myself, as Jesus said, all shall be lifted up onto me, are patiently working with the parts of myself that are weaker to bring them up to par. The same way, a kind parent would educate their child, right? I personally, I know schools did it, but I didn't test my daughter. You know what I mean? I sought to inspire her, appreciate her, accept her, love her, and grow and learn with her together, and that's how I'd like to be within myself. So I personally like the word initiation. What's an initiation? Initiation is the starting of something new, right? Jesus said you can't put new wine into old wineskins, for they will burst. So how do you make new? So does that mean you unlearn everything? No, you don't unlearn everything. To make something new, you just add to it, and you just make it. And by adding to it, you make the reservoir bigger, and that way it won't burst from the new wine, right? Because the new wine would burst the old wine because the old wine had too much of a contracted, limited series of value belief paradigms that couldn't fit the new information in without it bursting, right? So Jesus said, don't put new wine into old wineskins, they will burst, but put new wine into new wineskins, and both shall be preserved, right? And so the way I look at it is, you don't have to unlearn anything, you just continue to add and make connections. And when you start accessing love, right, and really start to realize that love is in all and through all. It's in the person that you might have an issue with. It's in the challenge that you're facing. It's in the world. It's lift a rock, I am there. Chop wood, I am there. It's in everything. And the more we identify with our union with it, we can gain insight, wisdom, perspective, and even manipulate in a positive way and influence our environment for something that's harmonious for everybody involved. It's the same way you could be with your hand, right? Each of those individual consciousness of the cells that make up your hand, of the trillions and trillions, or the trillions times trillions of molecules that make up your hand, you have formed a union and a harmonious relationship with them where they are able to remain being what they have chosen to be. You are able to remain being what you have chosen to be, yet work together in a way that suits all parties involved. And that's how we can really begin to see our world, right? So the thing about initiations is so when you're on your journey, and let's say you start getting a new information on this awakening journey, right? This awareness increasing journey, and you'll get inspiration. Sometimes the inspiration may seem like it comes from another self, from another person, but rest assured, you definitely called them to do it. You just chose to have it delivered in that way, right? Someone else brings you what appears to be some inspiration they're bringing to you, but remember, you called them. You were 100% responsible for that person delivering you the information. They are 100% responsible for giving the information. When there's an interaction between two parties, both parties are 100% responsible for that interaction. Whether there's ignorance or not doesn't matter. It just is what it is, or it wouldn't be. All right. So, and I think that's an important thing to note, so that we don't get caught up on the idea of like, oh, the guru, that guru, he knows so much and I know so little, blah, blah, blah. I don't believe in personally calling any other human being master. I have a big disdain for that. I'm personally even opposed to the idea of teacher. There's a Gospel Thomas scripture where Jesus asked him to tell him what he was, and they're like, you're a teacher, you're a master, and he goes, no, I'm none of those things. You guys are just drunk off the bubbling spring I've measured out, right? But whatever, I get it. It is what it is. So, but regardless, so let's say now a new idea has presented itself to you, right? And so for the sake of your character, that idea may have seemed to originate like boom, like a bolt of lightning inside of yourself. Cool. Or it may have seemed like boom, maybe like a bolt of lightning from something someone else had said in space. And perhaps it's like that too, not even to poo-poo the idea of teachers and stuff like that, but ultimately it gives the ability for one another to work in harmony together and give love, right? Like, the more I grow, I'm compelled to do stuff like this. You know what I mean? And it feels good to share the information. I don't see myself as a guru or even a teacher. I see myself as another being that, for whatever reason, brings in new information for some reason, and I'm compelled to go give it. So it gives me purpose, right? So anyway, so it's not a bad thing. Regardless, so if and or when you get an idea, right? So that's like a new idea, right? So we're kind of dealing in the realm of the super consciousness, the airy consciousness, right? It's powerful, right? But in its own way, right? It's powerful for bringing in new. And then now it could be rejected, or if the person is receptive enough. And oftentimes people become more receptive for new spiritual ideas after some type of hardship, because basically the person goes through some hardship, they've been struggling, they've been facing difficulties, and their old matrix of what they believed about the world, they're becoming increasingly and painfully aware isn't serving them. So what they do is they kind of like break it. It starts to crack. And now there's room. It's not as defensive as it once was, because they're quote unquote becoming more humble, right? So think of pride like when you have an old value belief paradigm that you overly identify with as all that you are, and it keeps rejecting and defending and protecting itself against any other ideas because it thinks it will keep you safe, right? And so when a humbling experience happens, it's not like that the person's humiliated or that the person should think less of what they are at their core, but it is in their best interest, perhaps, if the world continues to manifest discordant experiences for them, to realize that if the world, as I believe it is a perfect mathematically precise inverted projected reflection of your conception of yourself, means that it is the very value belief paradigms that you are holding on to that are creating the discordant experience, and the only way to change the outside is to begin with changing the inside. And so whether people are aware of that happening or not, when they have those suffering circumstances, those wake up moments, those rock bottom moments, basically it puts a crack in that matrix that they formerly had pride for, and with the humbling experience that now allows new inspiration in, right? It's kind of like all of a sudden you had a bunch of, imagine your garden of your mind, you had a bunch of trees in there, and you're like, I can't deal with it. You start pulling out weeds, right? You pull them up, and now there's space, right? So now the inspiration or the idea can come to you because you're more open to receive it. And it began with you starting to doubt what you formerly believed kept you safe, right? Not bad. Right, let's take the stigma off of pride, right? Unreasonable evaluation of oneself. It's just a contracted defense mechanism, and it serves a purpose, right? So now the idea comes in, right? Through the superconscious, it's like, all right, come on in, idea, right? The air, superconscious, right? Idea. Now, if there's openings, now it will start to have room inside of the mind of your matrix to start interacting with your intelligence. And that's the conscious, the water, the man and the tetramorph, right? Remember the tetramorph? So the angel's the superconscious, right? The man is the conscious, the subconscious, the lion, and the bull is the unconscious, right? So now what happens is now you have that idea starting to roll around your intelligence. Now this is something that I've learned over the past year. I was really good at bringing in new ideas and playing with them and understanding them on an intelligent level. But I had so many walls up and damming between my subconscious, unconscious self, who I deemed basically to be like the enemy, more or less. And some people are kind of the opposite. Some people are very rigid, more rigid and stubborn and willful, and they'll overly identify with the lion and the bull. And so they'll reject new ideas, right? And that can serve a purpose for them too. You'll usually find those people to be more diligent, more prudent, more temperate. They'll tend to more often take care of themselves, but you might see that their outward facing reaction with other people is kind of mean because they're protecting themselves from the other people. And you can find people that were like myself, the inversion of that, who overly identified with the superconscious, conscious kind of intelligence, inspiration realm, head in the clouds. Because if they have that separation and they haven't unified those parts of themselves, you'll see that they may be more likely to be less diligent, less prudent, less temperate. And so you might find them to be, lazier, seeking instant gratification with impulsive and compulsive habits. And if they go too far in that, they'll actually end up dropping into gluttony, which is it's like a shame-based response to the fact that they're not doing the thing. So I've been really learning, for me, and everybody's coming from different directions. For me, I've really been learning to love myself, and really take that same energy and ability and love that I was directing out of myself to aim it at myself, because I realized that, one, Jesus didn't say love thyself as Jesus didn't say hate thyself and love thy neighbor. He said love thyself as thy neighbor. Right. And so that's something that I've been learning. And some other people may find that on this journey right now, they're at a stage where they're going to learn to be more open-minded and more airy and, look at things like that. And that's helpful for them. Right. Me, I'm kind of working in the other direction. Right. So So anyways, so you get an idea, right, from the angel, right, the soft, airy idea, right, and ideas are flitting. They can be very powerful, and they can completely transform your life. But Jesus said in the Gospel of Thomas, he said, the seeds went out. I'm gonna really. I've heard so many different. I've heard multiple different renditions of this one, so I'll do my best to paraphrase this. He said, a sower went out and threw down the seeds. Some landed on the road, and the birds ate them. Some landed on rocks and couldn't take root. Some landed amongst the thorns and were choked by them. And some landed on good tilled soil and grew up to produce 60 and 120 per measure. Those with ears better listen, right? So for me, it's like, you need to get the seeds in there, right? But I was one of those people that I think the seeds, which one would have mine have been? I guess I didn't have cultivated soil, right? Because I was ignoring the subconscious, unconscious to too much of a degree and didn't understand and respect the fact that they're all to work together. I thought I was supposed to transcend the subconscious and the unconscious, and kind of escape them. But that's like a man, cutting off your nose to spite your face. It's like, oh, my arms are great, so I'm gonna just cut off my legs. What? Doesn't make any sense. Just don't try. Unless you only have legs, it's probably more prudent to use your hands for hand stuff and your feet for feet stuff, right? Don't try to. You can use your hand to do a math problem, but don't try to solve it with your hand, right? So anyways, so then the idea comes in, and then the subconscious is going to want an experience, right? So you could look at it like your soul. When you have these sometimes people will be confused on their awakening journey because you'll start getting really excited. You'll get this new idea about a new way to live, right? And you're like, oh my God, I could do this. Wow, the world's a perfect, mathematically precise, inverted projected reflection of myself. Yeah, this is awesome. I am God. Yeah. Right? Okay. Yes. That idea can and will be true, but it needs to be embodied. Right? There's lots of parts of you. So the idea could be true, but it needs to come in, right? And settle in and be transformed. So you'll do some time thinking about it from an intelligent level so that you can relate it to other things, right? I am not an advocate of the philosophies of spirituality that say, like, thinking is the enemy, the intelligence is the enemy. To me, that doesn't make any sense at all. I think, but Einstein also said, don't use the mind that created the problem to try to solve it, right? So, it's kind of this weird dance where you need new inspiration and ideas to be flowing into you from that love source that grows as you understand it, right? To add to your old understanding in such a way that it might even seem like it inverts the old understanding. It doesn't necessarily delete it, but it transforms it considerably. So for me, a lot of my thinking, my intelligence is actually the allowance of the new to merge with my present understanding to gain new insight. So I don't have to force it. I'm not trying to I can't figure it out. If the answer's not coming, you haven't made a connection yet. That's okay. Just desire it, intend it, allow it, and then surrender to it. Sometimes I like to suggest for people, if they want to do a God box, right? Put a little shoe box or something and write a question out that you want to have answered, put it in the box and forget about it, right? Now, the interesting thing is the thing is going to come to you through inspiration, and it will have to go through your intelligence, or it will just automatically be disregarded. If you don't allow it to flow through your intelligence, it can't communicate with you. It can't find relationship with you, and you can't grow. Everything's about unifying, not like the old energy was about separation and detachment and denial, suppression and projection. The new energy, for those who choose to accept it and move in that direction, is going to be about harmonizing and unifying and adding to, right? And so it's like, if you're not going to try to use your intelligence, well, that's kind of weird, right? Because it would be like talking to someone in a different language that they don't know. It's useless, right? So it's going to have to go through your intelligence. Then, now, here's where it gets interesting for people. So in order for you to embody this new understanding, you're going to need an initiation, period. You're gonna need it. So what is an initiation? An initiation, so a lot of the changes that are going to happen to you is you're going to realize you are way more powerful and influential and responsible for your reality than you once did, right? The evil that people talk about, fear is not a need. Fear doesn't arise from a need. Fear arises from the idea that a need can go unfulfilled. So there's a couple of ways you can increase the fear in your life. One, need a bunch of things that actually don't serve you value, right? And then, it's like, anyways, that's one way. Or another way is to need things and feel like you can't get them, right? So having a thirst for water is not evil, regardless of what some of the old Catholics would think when they beat themselves for having a body, right, and whip themselves and stuff. Having a thirst is not a problem. It doesn't cause suffering by itself. Well, sorry, having a thirst by itself will cause suffering, right? But if you have a thirst and you have water in your hand, now you have an experience. You have an experience. And you can drink that water and it's delicious, right? So a lot of our life, we thought we were of the world. We did not think we were responsible for it. We thought the world gave birth to us, not the other way around. So a lot of the transformation we're going to need to do is going to be walking through rings of fear. Okay. And whenever you face a fear, your old paradigms are going to activate and they're going to want to react and not respond. So basically, long story short, when you look at the etymology of react, so react is to react, right? Respond actually means to bring an answer to the situation. Right. The thing is, though, the subconscious and unconscious mind, which are valuable tools in your life, they're designed to protect you on this plane. And there's a couple of things they don't like. They don't like new information because that feels insecure to them, especially if their prior programming was that they were just an animal separate from God and separate from power on this earth. They have a very, very limited understanding of what they're capable of. And so all of their reactions are going to be dependent upon the idea that they think they're only an animal. They have no idea how powerful you are, right? So everything they do is going to be to protect you. It's not going to be the devil working against you. It's going to be your old unconscious, subconscious programming that had given you the experience of being a lowly animal that you're going to want to work with. And denial or suppression of them is not going to help at this stage. We're going to need to marry them, like we talked about in yesterday's episode. Bring those two together. Don't divorce them. Right? You could look at the unconscious, subconscious. You can make it one if you want. Say subconscious, right? And then you have your higher conscious, your spiritual conscious, whatever, right? The masculine conscious, the feminine conscious, and you're going to want to marry them. And it's yesterday's episode. We said it's better to hide on the top of the rooftop of your house than to live with a quarrelsome wife, right? So you're going to want to work together, and it's going to take some patience. And one of the things that will happen is you are going to a part of you that knows more is going to call initiations to you, because the subconscious, I'm just going to call it one just to simplify it. The subconscious wife mind is going to want experience. That's how she learns, is through experience. She's not going, if she's had a whole lifetime of experiences believing one thing, and then you come to her and you're like, I have a new idea. You know what I mean? Just kind of like imagine a wife and husband, and you have like this inventor husband. He's always coming up with ideas, right? And and I'm not comparing this to all women or men, so this is not me being a chauvinist or anything like that. It's just for the sake of this example of what we could see, let's just say the 1960s, right? And so the wife is home and taking care of the house, right? And it's the subconscious mind. Its job is to keep the home, the home in order and all that, right? And the husband's always good. I got another idea. And she's seen him in the past keep coming up with these ideas, and quitting his job for spending their savings and things like that. She's like, listen, I need to keep things in order here, and I'm not just going to accept any idea that you come. So it's a process, right? So I would suggest to be aware that, and usually the soul work is relatively easy on us. It will call initiations to you. Depends. If we're in extreme resistance, sometimes they get kind of intense. So I'd say the sooner we can say, okay, look, I want to transform, I want to unify, and I want to do so in the most comfortable way possible, and grow that understanding, then you get really easy initiations, relatively speaking. However, they'll feel pretty intense because you're dealing with your deepest, darkest fears. And so weird small things may seem to trigger you that make no sense. What I would suggest is when that happens, do not go into a shame-based response, because you're going to be shaming the part of you that's just doing what it was programmed to do. Right. So it's going to, for me, it was really helpful to go into a period of radical acceptance during this process, and knowing that no matter what was happening, it was all for the greater good of all parts of myself, and having trust. And sometimes, you have parts of yourself that have been denied for a long time. And when you open that door, they're angry, man, because you've separated them from you. You rejected them. And they might be a little loud, and, they might get a little angry. I assure you, for those that are on this path, it's going to be okay. Let it out, let it express. Love it. Choose to love it, even if you don't know what that means. Right. And this went way longer than I planned. So tomorrow's episode, I'm actually going to talk about applying love to the past self and the future self. What does that mean? The subjective self and the superconscious self. It's really, really cool stuff that I've learned. But I guess it was important to go over this thing about initiations, because it came out, right? So during the so that's what the initiations are. All right. You're calling it to yourself. You're not doing it to hurt yourself. It may feel painful because the more resistant we are in an old paradigm, the more uncomfortable it can be. But perhaps someone listening to this who will go through that experience will be able to have a better experience than maybe some of us who didn't have that foresight or understanding when we were going through it. It might make it a little bit more comfortable for you. And so that's ultimately what it is. So the idea comes in through inspiration, processes through the intelligence and the thoughts, and then it will call situations in front of you. You'll notice that whatever situations are called in front of you, if you actually look deep, you're going to find that situation has been happening for a long time in your life. You will know that's a pattern. You'll know it. You'll be like, wow. Be patient with yourself and show yourself love. Call on the power of love. Say, love, come in here and give me the information that I'm not seeing. Give me the awareness. Give me the understanding. Forgive yourself for whatever's happened up until then, right? And for your past self, and love your future self by having, love your present self by having patience, and love your future self by having a desire and intention for the greatest good for yourself. And the answers will come. The answers will come. Listen to the little voice, unify them. There's no devil inside of you. Could people have demons and all that? Well, love will manifest as what you believe it to. Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. So, so long as you want to believe that there's something within you that's an enemy, then there will be, right? So that's what the initiations are. And then once you start having those experiences with responses instead of old reactions, now you can rapidly evolve. And that's the beautiful part. And I think that's a part that sometimes in spirituality channels, some people might get hung up on when we go too much into the I am nothing, I have no desires, blah, blah, blah. You're causing a divide between you and the subjective conscious personality body matrix. And that's divorcing it, and you can only deny so long, and it can cause some issues with people, right? So bring them together if you want, love them, and then the final thing. Let's see the other scripture that was said. Jesus said, "The crop is huge, but the workers are few. So beg the harvest boss to dispatch workers to the fields." So think about your own mind, you have a whole bunch of crops, right? You have, the thing is that even the quote unquote bad experiences that you had don't need to be unlearned. They need to be mixed with love so that you can gain new wisdom and insight. But there's a lot of things that we've kind of denied and suppressed, that we have a bunch of trees in there that have valuable wisdom for us that when love enters will transform that understanding to make us even greater in our ability to interact and demonstrate in this world. But we've got to harvest them. We need to send our workers out. And so when we call in love, love will take on the form of what you seek it to be. That's why God has been able to be so many things for so many people, because ultimately it's an attributeless force. It's love. So people would literally create their own God, and it will become that of what they believe it is. And that's why I personally don't like to personify it, and I don't like to co-sign with anybody else's idea of God. The Bible says no one's looked upon the face of God and live. I am that I am, right? I am that which I believe I am, right? So if anybody's interested, try that out. Try to look at it. It's just simply love. And it's becoming that of which it's believed to become. So if you're having a struggle, you don't have to call to a God outside of yourself and say, God outside of me, give me the answer. Now, you could call for an intelligence that seems to transcend yourself, but that's simply because what you're calling on is information and wisdom and understanding that transcends your prior wisdom and understanding, but not transcending what you are at your core, a creator, divine, infinite being, right? We've just for so long looked out at this character that we've created as all that we are. And it's not to be minimized or hated or poo-pooed, like kill the ego. Love it. Love it. Love it for what it is. It's your creation, and you're intimately connected to it. You're married to it. Form the best union with it, and you're in love. And both the spirit aspect of you that is infinite, eternal, and impersonal will find value and meaning in this life because of the part of you that is material and has desires and needs and limitations. And that's what it's all about, forming that sacred union. So send out the workers, call in yourself, call in love to go out into the garden of your mind and bring things together for your greatest good, if you want. And one of the things that's been really helpful for me is it took me a while. I kept asking, what do I really want? And it's kind of modified itself. But when it first came in, it said, I want to be the best, to create the best life inside and outside of myself that I love the most, was my primary objective. Number 2, I want to be the best, to create the best relationship to all things inside and outside of myself that I love the most. And number 3, I want to create the best world inside and outside of myself that I love the most. And it's kind of changed now. It's and then it changed to I choose to do those things. I choose to be the best, create the best life inside and outside of myself that I love the most. I choose to be the best, to create the best relationship to all things inside and outside of myself that I love the most. I choose to be the best, to create the best world inside and outside of myself that I love the most. And now it's evolved into being the best, to create the best life inside and outside of myself that I love the most. I am being the best, to create the best relationship to all things inside and outside of myself that I love the most. I am being the best, to create the best world inside and outside of myself that I love the most. So that's it, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.